Hello, I'm Rabyd, otherwise known as the Rabyd Atheist, a former pastor turned atheist, now compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the videos as you see fit, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos as much as you like. The purpose of this channel is educational in regards to deconversion and atheist issues, and politics, philosophy, Bible, theology, and any other topic that comes up in relationship to those issues. Today I just want to talk about how I lost all my Christian friends. What I'm really dealing with specifically is the manner in which most of them ceased to be my quote-unquote friends. Not necessarily that they fell off my Facebook friends page, not necessarily that they stopped being friendly towards me, but the way most of my conversations have gone over the years since I became an atheist, and in particular since I started this channel, has been very interesting. I'm not going to name names. I'm just going to talk about certain different things that I find odd in the behavior that I have towards other people. Now, I'm not saying that these people are necessarily my friends, but we used to have some great discussions when I was still a theist. Now that I'm no longer a theist and I'm an atheist, the discussions are, shall we say, avoided or disengaged quickly, or I don't get a response. And I'm not saying that these people are bad for this, but it kind of indicates the state of things. I've spent a lot of time talking with a lot of people, and especially my therapist, on certain issues involving deconversion. But this is one of the more interesting issues, because for a lot of people, religion offers them the answers that they feel are unassailable. And so when you have friends and you become an atheist, it's become a very interesting phenomenon. It is an interesting phenomenon that we are mistrusted more than other religions by religions. So if you're a religious person, you actually, psychologically, this has been proven, trust somebody. Let's say you're a Christian, you will trust a Muslim who might even be a fundamentalist radical Muslim before you'll trust an atheist. It's very interesting how atheists are treated simply because they don't feel convinced that there's a God. It seems weird that you would distrust them more than you would distrust somebody that has a belief in the wrong God, according to you. And I've always found that an interesting phenomenon, because some of these conversations have gone very weirdly. I remember when I first came out as an atheist, I had a friend of mine from school who tried to argue with me about genetics, because he is involved in genetics. And I says, well, I'm kind of confused then. You say there's been no genetic modification ever, and yet I could pull up 4 genetic modifications. One, that there's a certain family that seems to have unbreakable bones. There's another family that seems to be developing a genetic reaction to heart disease. Let's even talk about lactose intolerance. Like, why is it that Western Europeans seem to not have this problem, which is an advantage because we can have cheese and milk and other things, but other places around the world, milk, lactose intolerance is a real thing. And, I had that conversation. That was also a conversation that I had with him about how there's just no way that Moses could have existed, and there's no way that the children of Israel have any record of their existence outside the Bible. It really is, for the Bible tells me so, when you look at the story of the Exodus, because there's really no archaeological or even documentation support of any group called the Hebrews living as slaves in Egypt. It just doesn't exist. Okay, and it's pretty clear now that the people who built the pyramids were not slaves. They were professional builders. These were people that were highly revered. And so, no, there just isn't any good records. And it's like, well, it's all one Egyptian kingdom. They had a view, except not always. They had northern, southern kingdoms. They had rival dukes and all the rest of it, what we would call dukes and stuff, having different accounts of the same event. But there's no mention of it. And so I had that conversation. I said, not to mention the fact that they would have been at that time leaving Egypt to go to Egypt, because Canaan land was controlled by the Egyptians at the time, and we have really good archaeological evidence for that. We don't have any good archaeological evidence for the Jews until much later, and they seem to be a sub-tribe of the Canaanites that kind of rises up and has their own religion and eventually thinks their religion is superior to everybody else's. Not unusual. That actually happens around the world with that kind of religiosity. But the thing is, after having that conversation with a friend, I haven't had a conversation with him since. The last thing he said to me was, "You're asking some very advanced questions." And I'm like, yeah, well, that kind of indicates something, doesn't it? That your faith can't handle the advanced questions. Okay, and this is the thing that happens. I had a recent conversation where somebody pulled out the old Romans 3:1-7 about obeying authority. And I says, well, let me give you a hypothetical then. You're in a country with an absolute fascist, totalitarian, authoritative dictator that is killing everybody that politically disagrees with him. Do you follow this verse, which according to the way it's laid out, because, Romans 13:1-7 is pretty clear that every authority, all of them, are established by God, and to rebel against them is to rebel against God. So the proper interpretation at that point is you shouldn't rebel even if the dictator is an evil son of a bitch. And the conversation kind of ended, well, I wasn't trying to be, he's like, I wasn't trying to make a theological point. I was just trying to talk about pastoral advice. It says pastoral advice is a theological point. Yeah, I didn't word it that way, but the idea that somehow the two are separated is nonsense. I says, sorry, lousy pastoral advice is lousy pastoral advice. It's not, good for you to automatically tell everybody they should abjectly obey every authority. Parents are authorities over their children, according to the Bible. According to you, then, abused children should never rebel against their parents. Okay? I'm sorry. This idea of complete abject submission to authority is a very bad idea, and religion has it in spades. And after that, conversation ends. Doesn't respond to me. Okay? This is how most of my conversations with my Christian friends end, and why I don't seem to ever hear from them ever again. And this is a deconversion issue, I suppose, because the one thing that really, I think, bothers Christians is especially with somebody like me. I was a Christian for a long time. I was a pastor for a long time. And all of a sudden I switched sides, according to them. And if they've looked at, I got looked at as the Bible answer man to a lot of people because I have the knowledge. I have a biblical studies degree. I have a theological studies degree. So when people had questions about their faith, about Bible, theology, they'd come to me and talk to me. And the end result of that is that when somebody who is supposedly an expert in Bible and theology and thinking through the issues, suddenly flips sides, what are they afraid of? I'm going to tell you what they're afraid of. They're afraid of that I'm going to hold that mirror up too close to their faith. That mirror of reason, that mirror of this is what this is really like. This is what it really is. And they're going to suddenly realize, oh my God, I could get infected and I could end up being an atheist too, and that would be horrible. And I find this very amusing. This is such an amusing pattern, because if your claim is that you have the absolute truth, you should not fear a mirror at all. You should know the reasons for your faith. And this gets back to my open criticism of apologists. I had a lot of criticism of apologists before I left the faith. I went into apologetics more out of necessity, because when I would look at the apologetical arguments for faith, I'm like, this is awful. This is terrible. I can already see the logical fallacies, and I'm still a Christian. I'm seeing how atheists would rip this apart and say you're full of crap. I'm seeing how an evolutionist would point out to you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I'm seeing where your theology is completely bonkers, okay, and leads to evil and contradicts itself. I'm seeing all this. This is what caused me to question my faith, because These are learned, very intelligent men. And even the best apologists that are out there, the most learned and intelligent ones, the ones that seem to have the best arguments, yeah, they're shit. Okay, they're terrible. Okay, and I don't make that assertion lightly at all. You know, people give me, oh, you should look at this apologist site. I look at it, and it's like, this is the same arguments at the other apologist site, just done nicer and with a few more quotes. I says, it doesn't change the fact that the core argument is bad. And this seems to, I think, get people frustrated because they don't want to look into the mirror and they don't want to lose their faith. They figure by association or even engaging my arguments, they're going to lose their faith. And this has happened a lot, okay, a lot more than gets publicized. I know several atheists, if they were to tell you their backstory, it goes a lot like that, where they just didn't want to lose their faith. And so they didn't engage the questions. It's not until you start engaging the questions that you begin to realize that there's a problem. And my problem continued is a lot of emotional reasons, a lot of very deep-seated emotional reasons that I kept my faith, not intellectual. My intellectual reasons for giving my faith were always in flux. They were always all over the place because I realized that I would make an argument for faith and I suddenly realized the 6 holes with it within seconds. And at first I would think it was a great argument. And then I would suddenly realize, no, this is a sucky argument. Okay, you know, it doesn't really prove a thing. And, you know, a Muslim could say this, a Hindu could say this. And when you start realizing that any faith-based thing has that weakness, you begin to realize that your own faith has those same weaknesses. It's funny how many people will argue against other religions that aren't their own, but not use those same arguments back against their own religion. And if they did, they would realize, holy shit, mine is just as flawed as everybody else's. And that's usually when they begin to disappear. It's the reason why most religions, even the non-cultic ones, so to speak, tell people to, stick to the information that we give you and avoid the information that's different than what we give you. What are they afraid of? If your religion is so true, then it should hold up to the scrutiny of truth. It should be able to look into that mirror, and that's what people are afraid of. When it comes to faith, and the reason why they don't want to engage you sometimes as an atheist, is it forces them to look in that mirror and see whether or not their faith really holds up to scrutiny. Is the emperor wearing clothes or not? Becomes a real question. And that becomes something that they don't want to engage. I'm just kind of laying out something that I've experienced there when it comes to my friends that are still theists. It seems that avoidance is the order of the day. And I really think they just don't want to look in the mirror, just like I had to look in the mirror and realize, you know what? I'm not wearing any clothes. There's nothing here. This is empty. This is a bunch of promises that somebody made up that can't be proven, can't be verified or anything. And I think that's the real problem. And so when they confront somebody like an atheist who's saying there's no good evidence for God, they don't want to face that possibility might be true. And I don't know whether to be angry or sad about it, but mostly sad. And I hope soon they get over it. The comment for the day today, I want to pull up, and it's actually the most recent comment I've received just today, a few hours ago. It's a response to the reaction I did to the Jehovah's Witnesses letter. This is on part 4. This is Primo 40. It says, technically, I'm still a JW, what they call the PMO phase, and thus his name. But in truth, I'm an agnostic atheist. I woke up a couple of years ago to the fact that my religion of birth is nothing more than high control guru, aka cult based on the Byte model definition of cult. I enjoyed seeing your reaction to the letter and track. Please do more videos providing jw.org content. I don't know that I specifically react to any specific religion, because I think there's some universal criticisms that one could level against all religions. For instance, what evidence do you have there is a God is a good one. any religion that maintains an afterlife story, you can say, well, what evidence do you have for that? What is the hard evidence that heaven or hell or Valhalla or Nirvana or any of this other shit exists? What evidence do you have? So basically, as far as I can tell, you're making it up if you don't have any evidence for it. Logical inconsistencies abound in any religion. It doesn't take too long to find any of them either anymore, for me at least. So will I react to JW stuff? Yes. I'm sure it's probably inevitable that's going to come up sooner or later. But I'm also going to react to Mormon stuff. I'm going to react to Hindu stuff, Buddhist stuff. Whatever comes across my desk at the time, I'm definitely going to react to it. I'm definitely going to go after it and, say, this is the problem. The reason why that JW reaction was so easy for me in some respects, and I told people I'm not an expert in the Jehovah's Witnesses, but I still made some valid points against what they said in their tract, because that's what they're presenting to me as who they are. And I'm looking at that and going, this doesn't make any goddamn sense. Okay, I'm looking at it and saying, that doesn't work. Why is that a truism? Why do you assume that that's true? There's no evidence for it. I can literally do this with almost any religion now. I can look at, hand me a tract from any religion, church, group, and I'll go through it and say, what evidence do you have for that? As far as I know, you're making that up. What's the difference between somebody making this up and it being truth? What is the weight of evidence that you put behind it? And with religion, there is no weight of evidence. The evidence is usually faith or some sort of thing that relates to faith. And what that means is, and to me, faith is a dishonest position. It's not even a virtue. It's unvirtuous. Because faith is basically saying, I'm putting my trust and my belief in something. I'm going to say that something is true, even though I have no way of verifying that it is true. I'm still going to order my life by it, do what it says, even though I have no evidence whatsoever that it's true. That's faith. Even the Bible says that in Hebrews 11:1. It's like, it's the evidence of things not seen. Literally, the Bible defines faith this way. And I'll get people arguing, oh, no, faith has evidence. But that's not what your Bible says about faith. Faith is defined by the Bible, is believing in something that you haven't seen. Even the story of doubting Thomas ends with a blessing. Blessed are they who have not seen and yet have believed. It's like your lack of engaging it reasonably and trying to find evidence for it is more of a virtue. Staying in willful ignorance is more of a virtue to people of faith than anything else. And it's on that basis you can pretty much attack any religion. I understand the personal plight that you have, Female 40, with the JWs, and I probably will at some point react. But you can take points, sir or ma'am, from any of the videos I do on any religion, because somewhere there is something in that you can use against your own. Because the arguments against religion, period, are pretty standard, okay, from an atheist point of view. And all of them still work, regardless of the religion, the variant, the cult, or whatever, particularly with the Abrahamic ones, because they get kind of weird. But my point is this, yeah, maybe, but you can still gain a lot from looking at other religions and realize, well, my religion doesn't do that, but we do something like that, or we believe something like that, and the argument still holds. It's like I've said, many times before, when you really put religion under the lens, it becomes evident that it was made up by human beings and usually made up to control and manipulate others. And that's why I think it's go. That's why I'm an anti-theist, because I think overall religion has had a detrimental effect, a retarding effect, if you will, on human development. And the quicker it goes away, the better. But thanks for the comment. I wish you luck in your struggles. I would recommend a guy named Telltale Atheist, and I hope you're listening to him because he used to be a former JW who came out. And he has a lot of videos specifically directed to the JW. I think he even did one today. He's been in a lot of trouble because his hometown is kind of trying to hang him up by the ropes because his daughter recorded his teacher doing some illegal stuff regarding religion. But he still has a lot of content on his channel. So he's definitely a good resource for you. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by. I appreciate all of you being here, and hopefully someday I can convince you to be a rabid atheist like myself. In the meantime, this is Ed Rabyd, also known as the Rabid Atheist, signing off and wishing you a good day.